Good evening. Can you hear me in the back? Okay. Thank you for coming. See some new faces, maybe, or just ones I have not seen. My name is Zopa, and I'm one of the associate teachers here. We had a full day today already of meditation from 9 to 4. We do that the first Sunday of each month. So Lama Michael was here teaching, and I mention it because we save all of our teachings now on YouTube, KCC YouTube, and it was quite wonderful the way he led us in great detail through calm abiding practice. And I hope to share some of that tonight, but you can certainly get it from the, what do they say, the real deal. The horse's mouth. I was going to say that, but it didn't sound quite right. In honor of our teacher. But the direct transmission. So this will be an indirect one. Okay. So sometimes when, like this evening, I'm kind of tired, maybe not feeling as bright as I would like to be, I like to go back to the basics. So the first basic is, what will we do this evening at KCC for about the first 45 minutes or so? We do calm abiding, and we'll do that tonight with some of these guides from Lama Michael today. I would call it the 4 to 10 second calm abiding. 4 to 10 second shine. That should intrigue you. And then we'll have a tea break, and there's nice tea and usually some snacks back there. I don't know if we left you anything. We might have eaten it all. But hopefully there's something nice to munch on and to visit and talk with each other. And then if you can stay for the last hour, 7:30 to 8:30, it's time for Dharma discussion. So your questions and your comments and sharing how your practice is going is more than welcome. And it's good if you can stay with the kind of motivation that's helpful to others, to your Dharma brothers and sisters, to hear what's difficult for you, what's going well for you. It's quite supportive. So back to the other basics. What did our teacher Shakyamuni Buddha teach when he was here? Well, some texts say 84,000 teachings. So we won't do all those. And other texts say those are all contained in some quite shorter, compact teachings. I'm getting some feedback here. And the first one, pretty much all the lineages agree, all the lineages in Buddhism agree. The first thing the Buddha taught to his 5 companions are called the 4 truths of the noble ones, or the 4 noble truths. And I sometimes like to just review those for myself, and hopefully it'll be helpful to you. Because when we get to the end of those, we kind of see why we need to do our refuge in bodhicitta recitation that we do at the beginning of each of our practices. So as I was driving over, I thought, oh, why not do these in a new order, which I have had it taught that way. Generally, the teachings are suffering is to be known, the cause of suffering is to be abandoned, perfect peace called nirvana is possible, and there is a path to it. But let's start tonight with the brighter, happier ones, which is there's a path to full liberation. So full liberation, there's nothing left to do after that. You won't slip backwards. You won't ever suffer one iota. Isn't that lovely and hopeful? And that's it. There won't, as we hear, there will be no sense of self or other, because that's an artificial construct in our mind that actually creates suffering. As long as we feel there's a self, then we set up a perimeter of protection, right? And you better not mess with it. Or we want to have what we want to have. Or my Zen friend says, I want what I want, and I want it now. Well, that's the self, the one that causes problems. Okay, so perfect peace is possible. How could we know this? We can know it because sometimes we experience flashes of it, our very own self. That's the best proof. Maybe it's come to you at the end of a very difficult project, or the end of a terrible argument, which turned out okay. But that moment of just let go, nothing to do. Maybe it came from looking at something beautiful in nature that you just came upon, stepping outside, sudden breath of fresh air. Open your eyes and the sun's rising. These are not to be diminished or thought of as not it. So we can have these moments of pure joy. The situation with us, however, for most of us, is that we can't stabilize it. Get it. The minute we get it, often one of the things that destabilizes it is we want to grab it, and we want it to last. Already ruined. Ruined. We ruin our joy. Not because we're bad, it's just a habit. And this we can unlearn. So this is part of the path. The other way we can know that nirvana is possible is we can meet people and see people in this very human life who personified this. So you can think of someone, it may be someone kind of what we call exalted, like the Dalai Lama, or the Karmapa, or our own Khenpo Lodro Donyo, or some people here met Bokar Rinpoche or other teachers you may know. But it also could be in the heart of a common person that you know that doesn't exhibit it all the time, but people feel happy, relaxed, and peaceful around that one. So this is evidence that we can move in that direction. And there is a path to practice with the 84,000 teachings. One of the main ones we do here that we'll focus on tonight is calm abiding, or shine. So there are many, many practices we also go through in this lineage. The 4 thoughts that turn the mind, that we have a very precious human life with incredible opportunity right now. And the idea is don't waste it, right? Don't throw it away. Don't be like a drunk who finds a jewel and can't recognize it and tosses it and continues on suffering. So that's one of the 4 thoughts, the precious human life. Yet we all know it will end. Michael made a funny joke today. He said, some of us will die. Some people didn't seem to catch it. A few of us were laughing. Oh, really, just some. So some of us here will die. Likely all of us. So this is tied to this constant impermanence. Now somehow I've moved from the 4 thoughts, the 4 noble truths to the 4 thoughts that turn the mind, but they're quite related. So also karma functions. It's good to keep our ethics, keep our lives simple, keep them calm, keep them kind. We don't need to crank things up. We probably all know this. Things are cranked up enough out there, right? Out there in here. We don't have to create a lot more drama. We could try and help it come down a bit. And that can be done with ethics, pure ethics. Don't harm. Don't steal, don't lie. No unwise sexual behavior. And no use of intoxicants to the level of being intoxicated. These things all cause chaos and suffering. So we can see if we can refine our ethics to a good point to help end suffering. And then we can see, and this ties back to the 4 noble truths, where does suffering come from? What is the cause? And the Buddha taught, it's our mind. This is the good news, because since it's our own mind, we can't change it. If it was someone else's, I'd be in trouble, right? I can't do a thing with someone else's mind. Of course I influence them, but I can't actually. Believe me, I've tried. Tried to change my son's mind, my husband's mind, my friend's mind. But, they seem to have their own. So, best we work in our own garden. And this is what the calm abiding is about. In terms of suffering to be known, I like to review the 3 types fairly quickly. You might already know them. You've certainly experienced them. You just may not have the words for them. So we have the ouch kind of suffering. The suffering of suffering, it's called. It's painful physically or mentally. That's the first kind. Even animals recognize that. They'll move away from it. They'll try and find a way to deal with it. The second kind of suffering is more interesting in a way. It's called the suffering of change. And it's the suffering we experience because we think impermanent things are permanent. And we lay that on ourselves. Then when they show their impermanence, we suffer. So we grasp at relationships. This will last forever. We grasp at our new car. It will never get scratched or crashed or whatever. So I don't need to give more examples. You kind of know this. But the suffering of change is interesting in that even the moment we get something that's wonderful, the suffering of change kind of taints it. Because it's very, very hard to just experience pure pleasure and not grasp. It's very difficult, even with a bite of ice cream, much less something more significant. But these are just things for us to look at and know. And the third kind of suffering is it's got different names, but it's dukkha. It's one translation, the all-pervasive suffering of being in this state, the state of the many things I just described, like those kind of grasping mind, pushing away mind that thinks there's a separate self to constantly pamper at your expense, me first. But this dukkha goes deeper. It's the suffering of actually, one teacher used to say, this. We say, what is it? She'd say, this. It's a body that gets sick without our choice. It's a body that ages without our control. It's a body that will die whether we want to or not. That's all pervasive suffering. And it's a mind that we have very little control over. It was interesting today when Lama Michael said that. Not so much control over what rises in the mind, but where we have some power, some efficacy, is what do we do with what rises? You can tell, you know this, right? You don't have much power over what comes up. You're just walking along and all of a sudden you're irritated, or all of a sudden you're confused. It's not like you conjured that. Like, I want to be irritated. I want to be confused. I want to crave. These things just rise. But what our calm abiding is about, and later our insight is about, is just seeing it, experiencing it, and watching what happens with it. If we don't grasp, if we don't push away, if we don't suppress, and we don't engage, what happens? It seems what happens is the impermanent nature shows up. Off it goes. But it doesn't go off because we hold and we engage and we feed it. And then it can get very big. Or off it goes and we bring something similar back. So this is how our mind is. And the point of the Shine we'll engage in now is to see how our minds work. And once we see, then we're in that first noble truth. Suffering is to be known. We see. We also see the beauty of the mind, which has this unbounded awareness. But a lot of times, a lot of stuff's in the way before that. Okay, so I think that's enough, and maybe even too much. So let's do our refuge and bodhicitta prayer. Bodhicitta, for anyone who's new, is simply the mind of the awakened mind, the mind that wishes for the end of suffering, not only for self, but for every other being, everywhere, boundless, no one left out, enemies included, strangers included, dogs included, ants included. Okay, so let's do this, Joe.
Until the summit of enlightenment is reached, I and all beings go for refuge to the sources of true refuge. I will now practice the absorption of calm abiding in order to release all beings from their particular suffering and establish them in lasting peace and happiness. Until the summit of enlightenment is reached, I and all beings go for refuge to the sources of true refuge. I will now practice the absorption of calm abiding in order to release all beings from their particular suffering and establish them in lasting peace and happiness. until the summit of enlightenment is reached. I and all beings go for refuge to the sources of true refuge. I will now practice the absorption of calm abiding in order to release all beings from their particular suffering and establish them in lasting peace and happiness.
So, as we engage in calm abiding, Shine, there are several things Lama Michael shared today. The first is relax. We relax the body. The back is fairly straight, but not tense. Just in a way that holds the body supple and awake, but relaxed. And we relax the emotions, whatever floats through. Let it float. Nothing to do with it. It's just appearing, then going. And we do the same with thoughts. Sometimes there are many, many thoughts crowding in. That's okay. If we sit still long enough, in general, they diminish. We are not trying to get anywhere, not even to a point of no thoughts. Just assume you'll never get rid of all thoughts. No problem. Let them float by. And then just relax some more. Now, most of us need some kind of anchor to come back to, or the mind just wanders. So you could use some small physical thing that's in front of you, a dot on the floor, a corner of a cushion, maybe a fold on the shirt of the person in front of you. Or most common, we use the breath. Some people use a small bright image of the Buddha, made of light, tiny. That helps the concentration, making it small. But whatever it is, simply choose one and focus there, relaxing, aware, awake. So along with relaxing, Michael talked about how important it is we build confidence. We have confidence in our practice. Confidence in particular in our ability to do calm abiding. So how do we build that? What he suggested today, and we did over and over, is sessions of no more than 10 seconds, preferably 4. In that 4 seconds, you simply place your mind on your chosen object. For 4 seconds. And then let go of it. And relax the mind for a couple of minutes, not trying to concentrate in that way. Just relax. And when you feel ready, another 4 seconds, concentrating, focusing on the object in a relaxed but energetic way. And again, simply relax. Let go of any effort, any energy towards that. Now, the purpose of this is to gain some confidence that, in fact, I can place my mind, experience the object I'm focusing on, in a gentle, persistent, open way. I can do this. And if, as Lama said, you can do it for 4 seconds, eventually you can build on that. But he was very persistent today to continue with nothing over 10 seconds for the reason we fool ourselves and we think we're on the object, but we've gone off. And then we feel like our session was not successful. So let's just proceed this way, just do the best you can. 4 to 10 seconds on the object in an energized, awakened, but no non-stress way. Then a relaxation, and then again to an object. It's good to keep the same object, although as he pointed out, the object's never the same, since the object and you are changing constantly. But don't think too much about that. Okay, we'll just do this for the next about 15 minutes.
By this virtue may I quickly realize Mahamudra and establish all beings without exception in this state.
Thank you. So there's a couple of announcements. First, just I like to announce these things because it gives us a great chance to rejoice in some super dharma. Of course, that's what we're doing here too, but we have about 20 people from our community who are in India. They just went this week, and they are at the Mahamudra retreat there, and we'll have teachings and empowerments from Khenpo Lodro Donyo, and our good friend Lama Eric Trebelhorn will be translating. So they seem to all have arrived safely, and we're pretty excited about that many going. And also just keeping in mind with prayers and rejoicing for our people who are out the Columbia Gorge, getting close to the end of their 3-year retreat. Oh my gosh. They'll be out sometime in June. The date has not been announced yet, but that'll be 3 years and a couple months that they've been there cloistered doing with the leadership of Lama Michael and Lama Tara go forth. So it's quite an amazing thing, our first 3-year retreat finally accomplished. So say prayers for them for their last 6 or 7 months. And practice opportunities, well, the very next one's Chenrezig is this next Wednesday night, and because it's the first Wednesday of the month, Lama Michael comes, and there's lots more time for questions about what is that practice and how to do it. So that's Wednesday night at 7 to 8. When he comes, it's often a little longer, I think 8:30 or something. Then Thursday night is mind training with myself and Tim Campbell leading, and we're getting close to maybe close to finishing the discussion on the 8 verses of thought transformation. But that's one of those texts where there's no end. So if you are just curious and want to come, and you don't have to worry, we've been on the text for a while. It's 8 verses literally, so nothing to catch up on, just come. That's 7 to 8:30 on Thursday. And then January 27th, Julie Herlacher, who's a long-time student here and who did 1-year retreat, she will continue leading a discussion on death and dying. So it's a Saturday, I think, in the afternoon, and then there will be a few sessions. And then, where's this thing? February 10th, coming up, Saturday, noon to 3:30, right here, we will be having our annual All Sangha meeting. So you're invited, especially if you're new or medium or been here a long time, but everyone's invited. It'll be fun. We'll have potluck lunch and short meditation and have presentations on the kind of the state of the community by the board and the program council and Lama Michael. There'll be a slideshow about this renovation and move, and thanking of volunteers and potluck desserts. So that's February 10th. We just put out our full 2018 teaching schedule, so it's on the kcc.org website with many, many offerings this year of things we'll do on Saturdays and evenings, and so please look it over. And especially there will be opportunities for a retreat finally starting in September, because the 3-year people will be out. We can use our retreat center. So some of us are very excited about that. And Lama Eric will be leading a couple retreats out there, one on calm abiding and insight, and one on Chenra Z. Lama Michael will lead a mind training Tonglen retreat out there, and there will be opportunity for people to carve out your own 1 week, 3-4 days kind of thing, to go out and sit in one of those blessed cabins, which are super blessed now that people have done these practices in them for the 1-year retreat and the 3-year retreat. So plan ahead and get yourself out there. There's nothing like a retreat, short or long, to boost your practice. Anything else, Linda? Nothing? Okay. Oh, yeah, volunteers needed to help with construction. Was that Wednesday? Wednesday here downstairs. They're doing some stuff and they need some folks to help with flooring. So if you have any time or interest, can they talk to you, Linda? 'Cause Linda's right up there, she'll come down and chat with her, and even you can serve 1 hour or something. It will be very helpful. Okay, have tea, meet each other, and bring back your questions. We'll have about a 10-15 minute break.